Creating version 2.0, transforming your vision into reality. You wake up every day feeling like your life is the wrong fit, dreading Mondays and knowing you should be doing something more. Many of us feel a disconnect between who we are today and who we want to become. I've got a little visual here. I want you to imagine this is you, version 1.0. And you want to become this new version 2.0 of yourself in the future. So here you're usually stuck in some way, and we'll go through this in a moment. Version 2, who is this? And how are you going to make this transition? Version 1 often feels like you're treading water, stuck in a cycle of bad habits, low motivation, feeling of being lost in routines, struggling with comparison to others, confusion around what exactly better looks like for you. And it all feels so far away, right? That transition from turning from who you are to who you want to become. You know you need to change. Why haven't you? Just think about that for a moment. Now, I knew I could be more to fulfill my potential. But what is potential? I realised I couldn't really be more vague. It didn't really mean much to me at the time. And I spent a lot of time trying to unravel this. There were hundreds of versions I could be. You know, you look at people on social media and you think, oh, I want to be more like them. I wish I had their life. I want their traits. But then there are thousands of versions of this. And then you end up not doing anything. So I felt stuck and I wasn't focused on one version. I hadn't articulated what that version wanted to be. So this is me. I'll just tell you a quick story. While in my corporate life, I was part of a group discussion about aspirations. This was really early on. And peers were talking about bigger career goals, doing interesting things, changing jobs, starting businesses. And, you know, I was enjoying the conversation. And a boss of mine, he's a bit of a joker, and he singled me out and said, not you, James. You'll be here in 10 years' time. You're a lifer. And at the time, I remember I laughed it off, but it really hurt. And it was more his words, right? Because it was this idea of a perception of me. And it was more painful because it was true. And 5 years rolled by and I hadn't moved. And some people had left and started their own thing. And I was still there. I really hated feeling like I had no control and often just dreaded going in some days. And this was version 1 of me. It was really painful to experience that I was locked in my own version. So version 1 of me, I was really hesitant. I never deviated from the path. If something was in front of me, you know, I'd become really good at following the system, you know, through the education system and then into the workplace. But I didn't realize the downsides of becoming hyper optimized for that I really struggled to think for myself, and I was really scared of taking risks, and I also lacked a lot of assertiveness. I didn't follow through on ideas, mainly because I was scared about the risks, and I just really didn't like this version of me. I just felt trapped in my own skin. I desperately wanted to change, but it just felt insurmountable. So this image, it really felt like you're trying to get to the peak, and you want to be that person at the peak, but you can't see a way forward. And that's kind of how I felt. I knew I had a vague feeling about reaching that height. I didn't exactly know. I mean, this I would say felt slightly easier in the sense that at least you know where you're going to go. I wasn't clear about that, which peak. We can think about version 1 to start with. What is it you don't like? Version 2, who is this? And how? We'll briefly go over Jodie's situation. She felt stuck and in corporate life, knew she had more to give, really risk averse and scared, and unclear on who she wanted to be at the time, and no idea what steps to take. Really desperate for some exposure to nature and only a photo of a 15-year dream. The regret just worsened over time. This was Jodie's transformation, right? So she started at this place and ended up over here as version 2. Now, I would say version 2, and it continues to upgrade, right? 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 to version 3. And I mean, this was kind of dream-like aspirations, but this is now in the past, and you can take a pause here and read what's going on there, everything she'd achieved. She was really, really trapped at that time, and this is something I see with a lot of clients. This was just one of those. I always like this particular transformation because it brings a lot of warmth to my, to my mind and heart, really, when I think about this. What part of your version 1 is holding you back? What frustrates you? What don't you like? Then the question is, who is your version 2 and how will you become them? How to become version 2. So if you're here and you're ready to do this, we can start working through this. So I'll show you step by step. So the next section we're going to go through, it will cover who this is, the definition of your version 2, and how to get there, the process, and how to stick to it, right? Because it's a transition and you will learn this. But first, metamorphosis. I'm going to tell you a bit of a metaphor here. It's quite important. Are you familiar with this? Caterpillar turning into a butterfly. Have you ever thought about how it happens? So just be clear. You've got these wings here. Now I'm going to take the picture away. So you see this. You've got, is it a caterpillar with bolt-on wings? It definitely doesn't look like this, does it? No. It does not equal a butterfly. They look very, very different. What is going on? Now, I know what you're thinking here. It's something to do with this, right? Okay. But what exactly happens? It is not what you think, most likely. We'll return back to this after a very, very quick exercise. Okay. So, first we need to think about, we want to start defining the version you want to become. What do they look like? We can start to visualize version 2. Now, this is quite important. Yeah, we need to combine the visualization and then the process to get there. And this is this end point. We want to understand it. This would be like selecting which mountain range you want to climb. So try and envision your version 2. What do they look like? What habits do they have? How does this version feel on a daily basis? Who inspires you? Now, this is where it can be useful. When you're doing this exercise, now you can go specifically to extract certain traits that you really like of people that you look up to. Think and write down these characteristics. What stands out the most? Now, don't worry if you would struggle laying this out. I've got some templates and exercises and resources because I find these exercises quite hard when you just got a blank piece of paper. So I've created it where you've got lots of easy boxes to fill in, and it's all guided as well, so step by step. So don't worry about that. But have a little think about it now. Okay, yeah, here's a little clip of one of the worksheets. Okay, so I've got a quick client reflection here as an example. Chris, incredibly unhappy, multiple areas, physical and mental, health, location, so where he was, like the city he was in, relationships. Really dark time, couldn't see a way out and deeply unmotivated. We defined version 2, which allowed him to see a future self. It took a while because of that, the place he was in and how unmotivated he was. But he knew he wanted to change, which is why he reached out. We really worked on unlocking the ability to build... Once we had been able to define his version 2, it unlocked the ability to build an actionable roadmap. Yeah, this is really important. And so I do a lot of work with people to try and build this vision, because it helps me for a start, but it also helps you see where you need to go. If you understand the mountain range you want to climb, we can start figuring out what routes you need to take, what equipment you need to take for that specific mountain range. It's a bit like this. And we worked on it. We worked on it so relentlessly. It was pretty crazy. And he became fitter, exited toxic relationships, and ended up in a completely new country. And I remember how difficult it was, even doing the plane ticket to, on that week. It was pretty crazy and emotionally very, 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 very challenging. But it was so great to see him on the other side. He set up a new life in a new country. And I'd say version 1.6, I'm still moving to version 2. Moved to New York, to Rio. Was awesome. Now, having clarity will help motivate and excite you enough to start the process. Back to the question. Have you thought about this? Right? What happens? What happens in this stage? So it actually happens like this. Now, I find this metamorphosis so fascinating. Now, I'm going to take you through it. It'll be quick. What happens? Caterpillar. It's just munching away. Its job is to eat as many leaves as possible and get as plump as possible. And once it's done, when it's about to do this big change, it stops eating and starts climbing and ascending. And it leaves the world they know. Stops eating, stops hanging around with other caterpillars, and leaves. It forms a chrysalis. It's not a cocoon, but I really like this word, so I will be using cocoon later. I only found this after a bit of research on this. Now, what actually happens inside the chrysalis? Have a moment to think about it. What do you think happens? How does it turn into a butterfly? They look pretty different. Remember this. They look pretty different. Well, it actually turns into a green soup. I call it goopification. It dissolves what its current form is to make way for the new. And it's shedding its old self. It destroys itself. So, and then what happens? The cells start to combine inside here. So you imagine a whole, like a soup of cells. And the new cell structure is pre-programmed to start assembling itself, optimized for flight, to leave the branches and to fly wherever it wants to go. There's lots of energy in, but that's supposed to say no immediate result, as in none, right? So lots of energy in. It's very energy intensive to make the change, and it can't fly instantly. There is a time delay here. Wings begin to harden, and it slowly breaks out. New form starts to reveal itself as it breaks out. The old self, there's only a husk left. Can you see this? It's a husk. The old self is gone. New form breaks free. It's the same core material, right? It's the same. The soup is the same cells. It's all contained in that, but it's a different form and function. This is really important. Hopefully, you can see how this maps across. And we go from 2D, where you're bound by the caterpillar can only walk on these twigs and branches, right? But a butterfly, it can leave and it can fly wherever it wants to. You can see how powerful this kind of concept is. Now, cocooning. This is a really important stage because we spend a lot of time here. Now again, technically it's a chrysalis. It just doesn't have the same ring, so I'm not going to use it. I'm going to use cocooning. Lots of clients use cocooning too, so it's kind of a bit too late to go back on this. Right. Leaving your existing world. It's about letting go of your current identity, a death of your old self. Now, just to explain what this means, it's removing bad habits, people, environments not serving you, and limiting beliefs. We are looking to make this shift from all of that to the new. It takes an emotional toll as well, because it often feels like you're going backwards. So you're leaving all of this stuff only to turn into soup. It's really uncomfortable. It's filled with uncertainty, and you feel very vulnerable, right? You imagine how vulnerable this caterpillar feels when it's in this cocoon. I definitely notice when I'm in this phase with clients, and it can be a few weeks up to a few months. I have to be really on the ball for support and encouragement because it's really difficult. I see this live. So if you're going through this yourself, just know that it's a very difficult process. you need to be really careful with who you expose yourself to. Now, a caterpillar, I also like this, the cocoon is by itself. When you're making these transitions, they are often quite lonely. Now, an example, it's about stop listening to narratives from others, stepping away from environments you're familiar with, breaking away from the same excuses you make, dissolving beliefs that are stopping you from taking action, that don't have, for example, that you don't have the ability or you're not talented. You don't take action due to fear of failure. Yeah, we're going to start dissolving some of these beliefs. Now, what happens is, in this phase, when we start to get rid of all of this stuff from you, right, in the cocooning phase, the transformation begins. Cells are rapidly moving. So now we're going to be fluid between the metaphor here and you. Cells are rapidly moving, assembling themselves, combining, dissolving, and you will find this. I notice this when I'm inside with someone while they're going through this stage. They're trying things, and some things are not working, and then they try again, and then they start to stick, and then we start to see some traction, and it eventually sticks. So later on, as we break out, despite the new form, can you see that? There's a you can see the butterfly inside. And there's a fight to break out of this old shell. It's such a powerful metaphor here, right? So you can see how it's there, but it's not ready. Yeah, it's trapped by its old self, but it must break loose. There's a struggle, and it makes for stronger wings. Now, here's a little visual. You can see the butterfly revealing itself. It's pretty cool. Quick reflection. What feels most challenging to you? Many people stop at this visualization, right? They think about this end point, being the butterfly. But without actionable steps, it will often lead to frustration and stagnation. I see a lot of people, so some people don't know who the butterfly is, and there are some people who have spent all of their time visualizing and not applying tactics and strategy for your daily life to make that transition. So this is what we're going to go over next. It can be really overwhelming thinking about getting to the end. And you're trying to get to the end, right? Bear in mind, this is not like when you're really feeling confident. When you're at the bottom here, it's when you're feeling least confident and most likely to doubt yourself at this change, right? Because you're going into the unknown. So here's a step-by-step approach to achieving version 2. So we're going to focus on the how. Remember, this person here is often low confidence, self-doubt, limiting beliefs, because you've probably already tried to do a transition and you've not been able to make it work. It's all about process, okay? Just as you see this, we're going to show you. So we're going to transition to this visual now. Version 1 to version 2. How do we do this change? So we take small steps, right? Rather than going to version 2 in one go, we go to version 1.1. We go to version 1.2. And then 1.3, 1.4. And it's a gradual change. And eventually, we reach version 2 over here. This happens all the time in all areas of society. Even in the tech space. Now, it's quite interesting. While I'm filming this, the new iPhone has just been released. So, yeah, you can see this evolution from version 1 all the way up to 16. Remember, we're not going to do it in one jump, yeah, because it makes us feel overwhelmed. So the concept here, it's not just about small steps. The complete change is often too much for your brain to handle. It's just too much to cope with. It can't extrapolate this change. And change just doesn't happen like that. What we're going to do is we're going to work with your brain, and we're going to apply gradual change here and also apply rapid feedback. Why is this important? So imagine you go here. You've completed version 1 and you completed version 2. What happens to your brain at this point? You start to think, maybe I could do this. If I've done 2 version iterations, maybe I could make it to version 3, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. Just like this. In real life, there are lots of milestones and roadmaps, right? So these are like milestones. You see this. These are places you can climb. as you go up. Yeah. We turn it into this. It's really important. And then we eventually can get to version 2. And at this point, you can say, yeah, I am version 1.5 without a doubt, because I'm here and I'm still climbing and I get to version 2. So when I'm working with clients, I will often remind them where they are in their version transition, because they often doubt themselves when they're at level 1.3 and things are not working as fast as they want them to be at version 1.3. We remind them that they have been stuck at version 1 for years and years and years, and we've rapidly moved in weeks from version 1.1 to 1.2 to 1.3. And we just go look at the results, and we remind them, and we say, can you see the path? And then they start getting motivated, and they feel more confident, and they start moving forward again. Yeah. But this dialogue is quite important. So while you're working, this is, if you're going to be working on this by yourself, you need to go through this process to help bolster you up. I do this all the time. When I'm going through a transition here and I'm trying to move from one version to the next, sometimes I will doubt myself, and then I need to go back and I remind myself, where have I come from? Yeah, in this case, I am a version 1.4, right? I just need to keep moving. I've moved 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. I'll just get to 1.5. Look at your milestones, and it's mapped to version 2, and you're good. Now, how do we create our own maps? So, this is one of the hard things. In established systems, you will see routes already laid out. Now, I'll talk about this in a moment. But in life, we have to create our own maps. So here's a little hint. How are these created? What's going on here? These are aligners. Invisalign. Now, you get a bunch of aligners, right, to help mold your teeth to the end product. Yeah. So you start, they are designed for these shifts. So you will wear, let's say you have 10 different aligners. The first one will shift you from literally version 1 to version 1.1. And then you will make those changes. And then eventually you will see, and also really importantly, you see your teeth start to change. And when they feel comfortable, you move to the next version. So what is the system here? We identify versions between the start and the end. Milestones, you put them in. They're tangible and motivating. Yeah, I'll give you some examples in a moment. It's an immediate goal for you to focus on, which makes it so much easier. You can just focus on your feet as you walk up this, let's say this mountain. You just need to get here. Yeah. Now with aligners, if you were to wear the, aligner set 10, it wouldn't fit, for example, and it will be extremely painful. So you need to put the right one in for the next iteration and the next change. They are real wins. You see the result. So if you're climbing up a mountain, when you go from base camp to the first checkpoint, you're there. You can see how many meters you've ascended. And your brain extrapolates. If we keep doing this, we can work our way up. Now, in other areas, this happens all the time. In sports and music, you'll have belts. In martial arts, you'll have grades in music. Grades 1, grades 2, grades 3 to grade 8. Why? You don't jump straight to black belt. You go up through the grades. Yeah. And then when you achieve each one, there is usually, I used to do judo when I was a kid, and I remember working my way up through the colours. It was really motivating. But if there was only one step, it'd just be too overwhelming because you just wouldn't know how to get there. Okay, some examples. So there are loads of examples everywhere. Running, covering increasing amount of miles. So I had a client where she was nowhere near running, right? She really wanted to get fit, and so we started with really short walks, and we would do it in the darkness so she couldn't be seen in the morning because she was quite anxious. So we set a goal of just leaving the house for 5 minutes in the dark and just walking around outside her house and then coming in. And then we slowly created these things, and then eventually we got to the point where she was doing miles, and it was incredible. It was the first time her family had ever seen her start moving again. It was really cool. Weightlifting, increasing the amount of weight. Now, I remember when I first started lifting weights, I was using little plastic dumbbells when I was studying at university. Me and a friend, we were on one of those big Bosu balls because we didn't have a bench. We were doing it in our dorm rooms, and lifting these plastic weights, and they were kind of, what is it, 2 or 3 kilos or 4 or 5 pounds each. And you start there, and then you have this vision of where you're going to go. And it's quite easy with that one because you got literally the numbers are on the dumbbells and the weights. But I remember they were so light, it was just like holding bags of sugar. Business, increasing revenue. Social, increasing friends. So some people will say, I have this a lot with clients. I want to build a new social network. I wish I had more friends. You don't start at the end. Well, you have that as a goal, but then we start creating a framework and a program to get there. An example would be, okay, how can we meet the first new person? Yeah. And it may well be trying to hit a new person a month. Creating content, speaking on camera. This is a really common one. Obviously, I went through this with my journey, and we will be going through this later. And you may have seen this in other courses too that I've done. Mapping out your versions. So this is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to slowly shift you from version 1 to version 2. We can start to map this out. Think about a timeline. What does your version 1.1 look like? What must you do for you to become version 1.1? You choose your change. Think of each stage like a new aligner or grade. Anytime I try and make a version change, I really think about breaking it down like this. Creating your own program of change. This is one of the things that's really difficult, and I'm going to continue working on this until I can figure out a really good solution to give to you all, right? But in the meantime, we'll do our best. The idea is we create these mini programs. Now, ideally, I would always suggest if you're trying to work in a new domain, you want to try and find an established program. If you go to gymnastics, for example, it's so optimized for progression. You just need to start going to the beginner's class, right? And then you will just ascend through the progression. And then a few years later, out you pop the other side. Really good at gymnastics. Yeah. But a lot of changes we do as adults, they are, we have to do them by ourselves. And there are often not very clear paths. So we have to learn the skill of building our own programs. So this is why when you go through, for example, the education system, it's already mapped out. Yeah, this is something I struggled with when I realized I was really good at following other people's structures. But then when it came to creating my own and governing my own destiny, I didn't know how to do it. So this is where I got stuck for like 5 or 10 years. So yeah, this is what, I try and help people solve these days. It's hard. The important thing is you just want to approximate, right? You don't have to be really detailed. Just approximate the stages to start with, because you will become more knowledgeable as you go. And I'll give you an example in a moment. Just use it to get started. Map out version 1.1, 1.2 just to get you started. As long as your direction is correct, you're pretty good. Here's a personal example. So I did a physique change. I wasn't supposed to show you the end point, but this is what I look like. How did I achieve that change? A lot of people wondered. I really did not like myself at that point. I really disliked how I looked, and I built a program for myself because this is not without trying. I spent years trying to change this. And that was how I looked. And I remember when I built this program out, I really hated how I looked. I'd kind of hit a mental place where I just needed to make this change. I was not feeling healthy mentally. I was not in a good way physically. And anyway, I started to lose weight, and I could see the numbers starting to fall ever so slightly on the scales. It was really hard, but I already started to feel better, and I could start seeing changes at this point. The weight was dropping, and I was starting to get some visual feedback at this point. And so I set these things. So I would weigh myself quite regularly to track this, because sometimes you can't see things as fast as you can on the numbers, and vice versa, actually. And then there was one point I was really feeling the heat. It was really difficult to make this transition. I wasn't ready to give up, but I was definitely feeling hard. But I also knew at some point it would be noticeable, and I actually baked in this idea that it eventually would be noticeable and what would happen. And I started getting some comments from some close friends, and the amount of extra motivation it gave me was insane. I actually didn't tell this. There's one particular friend that mentioned it, and I remember it just lit a fire up my ass, like, so much. I felt really good about myself, and it really pushed me to go from here all the way to here. And I eventually kind of got to this level. Now, I'm not totally there, right now, because it was pretty extreme, but I just wanted to know whether I could do it. And got to the version 2. And now I'm pretty high confidence that I can make these changes anywhere I want at any time. This was the first time I did it, and I'd spent about 8 years trying to battle with this. And I did it sustainably because I was still eating out when I wanted to. And it was a really nice kind of harmony with my physique and my weight. Now, I'll just give you another example. Content creation. I went from this, you can see, it was awful. I'll explain this in a moment. And eventually getting to this. What was my journey like? I was scared of speaking. If you've taken some of my other courses, I talked about having my YouTube channel in 2006 and being too frightened to post for nearly 14 years, right? So I built a program. It was the only way, because remember, I tried to beat this for over 10 years and I couldn't do it. I kept watching all these YouTubers. There's some YouTubers who weren't even born when I created my YouTube account and wanted to create content, right? Every day passed and I wasn't able to do it. So I'd had enough. And once I'd figured out these systems are working for me, I built my own little mini program. So what I started doing was I started speaking to myself in the car, and I rigged my phone up to record me while I'm driving so I can't look at the camera. It was just filming me, and I just talk away because I'm okay to talk in the car by myself or with people. And then slowly, there were quite a few micro steps in here. Then once I got used to having the camera on, so I used to get really afraid of seeing the red recording light. It's kind of crazy on a camera. It would freak me out like crazy. And then eventually I got to the point where I posted my first TikTok video. And this was, one of them here. You can see, I can see the nerves in the screenshot. And then I got comfortable publishing videos. And then it was a case of optimizing content, upgrading production quality, and you can see the change here, to the point of here. And I'd say, I was feeling really confident by the time I got to this level, and it was very consistent. And I'd done over 400 or 500 videos by that point. Bear in mind where I came from. 14 years of fear, and I had to do these drills to get me to speak in front of a camera lens because I was so afraid of the red recording light. So a question people will ask me is, did I have this fully mapped out? Right? Did I know all of that? Because how do you know what you don't know? Well, I'll answer that. No, I didn't. I only had an idea about the first few versions. And I knew if I get to here, I had a loose idea of what would happen. I knew there would be a stage where I might want to get a new camera. I might want to optimize my content, but I had no idea how it's going to turn out. So it just became clear after I got to around version 1.3. And I knew this. So I would just sit at my desk. So I had my phone here, and I would just lean it against some books. I didn't even have a mobile stand at the time. I just leant it against the pile of books I was talking about. And and I just recorded it. And I used a little mic. No, it wasn't even a mic. I was just using a phone audio. Then I used just standard headphone speakers with the mic on the wire to speak to. Then slowly upgraded from there. It became a lot clearer what I needed once I'd reached version 1.3. So, hopefully you understand this as a concept. So to help me map this out, I've got some nice little worksheets. They are guided. We start from level 1 and then we work your way up. They are templated too. So it will, because creating programs for yourself is quite hard. So I've also got some bonus template programs, and you can see here. And there's some cheat sheets, examples from clients. And over the next few months, I'm going to add a whole bunch of new examples from live clients I've worked with. So this is not just theory. This is in practice what we laid out. And if you've got any requests for specific ones, I'll help map these out and give you as examples, because I've got hundreds. So let me know. How do I stay consistent? If you don't put the aligners in regularly in your mouth, it won't work. So the problem is, so even though where you're trying to get to, let's say with your teeth, or black belt, or up the mountain, and you know the process to get there, which is all of the stages. The last piece is you need to stick to doing what is necessary to get there. If you don't put the aligners in regularly enough, it won't work, right? Remember that. If you don't take your steps, you won't get there. So, hold on. We need a... Yeah, so the problem is, in the moment, it's easy to make the wrong decision. We need a way to remind us to do the right thing. Yeah, in the moment. For example, if you're trying to lose weight and you're trying to control your diet, when you've got a choice of a chocolate bar or some sweets, you might choose it in the moment. Yeah, because you can't think about that the complexity of your long-term goal at that time. It needs to be clear and simple. The solution here. So I've got a really fun little concept I call red rocks and green rocks. I just realized I don't have my props with me. Let me get them. Red rocks and green rocks. Okay, so what's this concept about? I want you to think about this. Your red rocks are your version 1 actions. They do not align with the transformation you're looking to try and achieve. And that will keep you stuck. Green rocks, on the other hand, are your version 2 actions. They do align with your transformation, and they will move you toward your goal. So think about these two types of actions that you can take. Focus on green rocks. Each day, your goal is to accumulate green rocks. That's the only thing you need to focus on. Now, I'll just give you a quick example. Red rocks, skipping a workout, right? You plan to go for a workout and then you just decide to skip it. Red rock, okay? Mindless scrolling on social media. Red rock. Mindless snacking. Red rock. Avoiding a task that you said you would do. A red rock. Green rocks, on the other hand. Completing a workout. Starting a task early. Eating a healthy meal. Limiting social media use. Now, I actually have these green rocks, right? I have little green rocks, which I collect, and I put them in a box. Yeah, like this. And so each of these, and I've got little red rocks as well. They are symbols for these types of actions. Why is this so important? And why is this important to me? And why do I use this for clients? Because this is really fundamental to getting your act together, right? Because we dismiss a lot of these what we classify as minor actions, but it's the accumulation of all of these minor actions that create your life. Yeah. So we'll come back to this, but toxic rocks. Now, if any of you follow Superman, there's this idea that he responds to kryptonite. Now, we will have to forget for the moment. Now, okay, we just keep on point here. I want you to think about when he's exposed to this kryptonite, he is affected by it. I want you to think about when you pick up your rocks, it is like the energy inside them bleeds into your skin. And red rocks, they weaken you and make you more likely to pick up red rocks. And you've experienced this. When you binge eat, drinking, scrolling, late nights, you want to binge more. Yeah? And when you drink, you usually want to eat more. And then you have a later night. And then you wake up late. And then the first thing you do is pick up your phone and start scrolling. And then you have a really terrible day the next day. And then you start missing workouts. And it happens. And in this, when you pick up red rocks, the reason I use Superman here is because when he picks up the red kryptonite, it makes him go a bit mental. And he gets really angry, has rage, and becomes very volatile. And so I like to say that because I noticed this with clients, and it happens with me. When I start acting up, there was one moment where I was having a really bad time, and I think I'd gone out to eat fast food about, 12 or 13 times in a week. And over that month, I think I'd eaten out more than 35 times. This was quite a few years ago. I couldn't believe it because I've never been that bad. And Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. On the other hand, green rocks, they strengthen you. Now, some of you have maybe picked up that in Superman, kryptonite is green and actually makes him weak. We will ignore that little detail here. I just want you to imagine green is good. Green makes you strong, and it strengthens you. They make you more likely to pick up green rocks. Every time you do a good thing, you start working out, you think, I could do this. I could make my change here. Every time you sit down to study, every time you spend that half an hour working on your new business, or developing your idea, or building your portfolio, writing your resume or CV, reaching out, you get stronger and stronger. And again, this is something I notice again with people I work with, that when they start doing good behaviors, they wonder how can they be good in all the other areas? Like, would it be as slow to get through all of this? No, because when you start picking green rocks up, your whole mindset starts to shift, and you find new motivation that will drive you, and you can pass these green rocks on to others. So it's why when you get into good habits, you build more good habits. So here's an example. We'll call him Jamie. It's a client, and Jamie didn't realize he was picking up red rocks. It's quite funny, actually. He was constantly picking up red rocks, and before our early sessions, we had to get clear. He didn't realize why he was getting so angry and so rageful. We had to get clear on what behaviors were red rocks and green rocks, because it was his life was so hectic, he couldn't even tell what was green and what was red. Yeah. So we had to define those, and we realized he would get into a rage after he'd start picking up too many red rocks, or a red rock would hit him on the head and would make him angry. He'd start throwing red rocks back. Yeah. So he actually bought his own rocks and these little gems, and he kept one in his pocket to remind him that he needs to keep picking up green rocks every day. So a little token. And he was actually a mentor to other people in another field, and would tell this concept to others. Now, even if you tell this concept to other people, and I'd love it if you did, it's a good thing, because that's also a green rock. Because we found green rocks have this calming effect. When you start interacting with people with green rocks, for example, if you help someone out, yeah, if you see someone who needs a bit of help and you help them, how does it make you feel? Usually it makes you feel better. Yeah. And so it calms you, it has this calming effect. So when you help people with green rocks, and maybe if you can see they are picking up red rocks and throwing them at people, help them see the green rocks in their life, and maybe help them and give one to them. Yeah. So some client observations. Once clients identify and start picking up green rocks, they usually see really rapid progress. Picking up just a few red rocks initiates a downward spiral, and it happens pretty quickly. They would call me in an emergency when they learnt the signs. So I would ask people to say, okay, once you've picked up 4 or 5 red rocks, give me a shout, and I'll take those out of your hands, and then we'll get you working with green rocks again. Simple concept. Use whatever system works for you. I don't care whether you're using the green rocks or red rocks kind of a concept. We're just looking to get you to have the right behaviors that will help you get you towards your goal. This is just a really playful way of making it real. Yeah. And because when people talk about good habits and bad habits, it just doesn't have that really strong impact. And when you have clarity of thought, it makes a lot of sense. The reality is, when you look at the end of the day and what you've actually done, you realize you've just been picking up all your bad habits. So intellectualizing stuff doesn't work. That's why a lot of the stuff I talk about is very practical, and usually I try and make it quite playful, because it's the only stuff that works. It worked for me. It's the only stuff that would work for me, and is why it works with lots of clients too. Okay, so interactive exercise. Think about, what are your green rocks and red rocks? So just right now, you don't have to write this down, but it would be great if you did. You could even pause it now. Think about what are 3 red rocks in your life? It could be opening Instagram on your phone. It could be going to the fridge to pick up a snack, picking up some chocolate, going on Netflix when you shouldn't, clicking refresh on your YouTube account, yeah, to see what the latest videos are when you're supposed to be doing some work. What are your green rocks? Maybe going out to get some fresh air, doing some yoga, some stretching, maybe some reading a page in your book that you're trying to get through, doing some development on your portfolio. Yeah, think about that. Now remember, keep it really simple. Know what your green rocks are. Be really clear about this. Know what these are in your life so you can always pick them up. Accumulate them every day and adjust them as you go. So I've got some worksheets for you to help you steer this. Now, the reason I do this is because, again, some people will struggle. It's just from experience. Some clients struggle and they needed some prompts to get them started, to help them articulate what exactly the green rocks are. So I've laid this out in all the domains of your life, and you can see plenty of examples. You can see that in the screenshot here. They're guided worksheets from beginner to advanced. It will take you through the whole shift from version 1 to version 2, by the way. I've got some progress trackers in it, lots of examples to help you through this. So this is your training. On the next set of videos, I'm going to actually walk you through all of these exercises. They start from level 1 to level 3. So it should be quite fun. Are you ready to become version 2.0? It is so fun when you get to unlock yourself like this. Good luck, and I'll see you on the other side.